Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello.
Now it seems for so long that we've been talking about and hearing about an Uncharted movie.
Yes.
And Josh has been doing a little bit of a deep dive into the history of it because there's like 6 or 7 versions at this point.
Right, because for better or worse, ever since this film was announced in 2008, 12 years ago, I have been following it, Scott. I didn't even like the Uncharted franchise back then. I hadn't played it.
What?
And yet this movie piqued my interest because we didn't have many video game movies at the time, and I was hoping to God that this would be good. But delay after delay after director after director after writer after writer after star, it just keeps being put off. So I want to run through the entire timeline and where we stand now, because the future does look promising.
Okay.
So let me take you back to 2008.
Please do.
Arkham Asylum is about to come out in about a year's time. I got the year wrong there.
Can't remember a single game from 2008, to be honest. What even was back then?
BioShock had just come out.
That's 2007.
And around BioShock had just come out for the PlayStation 3.
Good.
And around the same time, an Uncharted movie was announced, which was going to be an adaptation of Drake's Fortune, which was the first game.
Is that the one with Mark Wahlberg?
Well, let me get you this.
Right,
2
good.
years later, in 2010, David O. Russell, who directed the likes of Silver Linings Playbook, was brought on as writer-director.
Okay.
He also cast Mark Wahlberg as a grown-up Nathan Drake.
Terrible.
And apparently, I didn't know this, Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci was in talks to play Sully. I would have loved either of those two people as that character. That could have been interesting.
I don't. Robert De Niro's little like sort of smug face that he does.
Yes.
That one sort of like that face. I think that with a tash could look like Sully. I
and a
guess.
nice little cigar.
I guess.
It could kind of work well. That might have. But the one change that David O. Russell was going to make, because apparently that wasn't going to be based on Drake's Fortune, he was rewriting it, he was reimagining the entire series, and in this version, Drake was actually Sully's son.
Of course it was, because if you were some Hollywood guy and you took one look at a script, well, he can just be his son.
Yes.
Doesn't even matter. Just discard their entire relationship.
Yeah, so they were going to focus on the family themes, if I recall correctly, and unsurprisingly, 1 year later in 2011, David O. Russell left because of creative differences.
Good.
I wonder what they were, I have no idea. And then Neil Berger came in to rewrite the script, but he left in 2012 to direct a Divergent.
Well, I almost laughed. I thought you were going to say Neil Burger King, but you did not.
Very
it was
good.
Neil Burger. Definitely not a funny name.
Not
Carry on.
his name.
No.
And then after that, things went dark, and then the National Treasure screenwriters were brought in to do another script. And then in 2014, Seth Godin, who did cinematic classics like Horrible Bosses and the Baywatch movie.
Horrible Bosses wasn't that bad. Baywatch, I heard different things.
Baywatch was very bad.
Baywatch pretty bad.
Baywatch was horrible.
I didn't
he
see
was
it.
announced to be directing, which was the movie was going to release in 2016.
Okay.
So that's 4 years ago.
Right.
And then that went completely tits up, and Mark Ball, who wrote Zero Dark 30, was brought on to rewrite the script yet again, and it was at this point that Chris Pratt turned down the role of Nathan Drake, which I would have loved.
Wait a minute, we need to talk about Nathan Drake's casting. There's obviously more versions of Uncharted to get to, and there's the Nathan Fillion fan film out there.
Yes.
That's part of your wrap-up, but that's out there somewhere with nothing to do with of Sony officially, other than like the characters and everything. But Mark Wahlberg, I don't want him never wanted him as Nathan Drake. I remember that from 2008, being like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
No. And then I'm glad he fell away. I know that he comes back later, playing villain final third. But then Chris Pratt, I guess that's closer.
I think it is.
Kinda.
I remember too at the time that when Mark Wahlberg was announced, and everyone lost their minds because that is admittedly, in my opinion, not a very good casting choice, especially when Nathan Fillion at the time was perfect for the role.
He still is.
And I kind of think we missed a bullet with that version, because as much as I love the idea of either Joe Pesci or Robert De Niro as Sully, the idea of Sully being Drake's dad and the idea of Mark Wahlberg being Drake, I don't think it's very good.
No.
But Chris Pratt, on the other hand,
yes,
I can really see it, especially at the time. That was, I assume, was that just after Guardians 1 or around the same time as Guardians 1 when he was breaking out into new roles?
Well, for the longest time, I'm sure he was rumoured to be like a young Indiana Jones. That was something that was like circling the drain. I was going to say that sounds more negative than it's meant to, but I'm sure Chris Pratt at some point was being talked about in this archaeological bent.
Well, yeah, because he just fits the the action adventurer hero mold so well. He's got the abs, he's got the humour, he's got a nice little chiseled jawline. He's a very charismatic performer, I think. Should we move on to the second half?
Yes, I think I've recovered. I'm glad Mark Wahlberg's gone for now.
Well, After Mark Ball was brought on, the Sony hack happened, which resulted in a switcheroo.
More than one hack going on here, mate.
Very good, Very good.
Films. Good.
That meant that Tim Rothman was now the head of Sony, and then Gordon was released, and Joe Carnahan, who made The Grey and Smoking Aces.
Smoking Aces is one of my favourite films.
Well, he was brought on to write the script and potentially direct. And apparently, I remember reading a lot of interviews with Joe Carnahan at the time.
He's so good.
He was bigging up this script, which I think he was aiming for an R rating. That obviously was never going to happen. But he was talking about the set pieces. It sounded really cool. Obviously, you love Smoking Aces.
It's Joe Carnahan.
You love Smoking
I've seen one film by him, and I'm swearing by him now. Yeah, go watch Smoking Aces.
Sadly, that dream was short-lived because although he wrote the script, a new director, let me get this right, who was the new director, Scott? It was Sean Levy.
Who's that?
Who directed Real Steel, which was not good.
Actually, I'll tell you what we smoothed over before. I know you've got a lovely little script, but we went from the bit when they had who were the comedy writers, and then they took a swerve into Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, we went from the national.
What the hell was that?
The National Treasure writers. And then to replace them, they got the writer of Zero Dark 30 to come on board.
Imagine being that guy that comes on board just.
What was Sony thinking? What did Sony want this movie to be? They obviously had some creative vision because they let David O. Russell go over due to creative differences.
There's not like any serious beats in Uncharted. Maybe in Uncharted 4, but that wasn't out then. So it's like you can't do a Zero Dark Uncharted movie. I kind of want to see it, I guess. But
I do. I went up the record. I don't want to see that version of the movie. But yeah, in 2016, Sean Levy was brought on board, and that was when Tom Holland was signed as the younger version of Drake, which I can't believe that happened so long ago. In my mind, that's a recent casting, but the idea of that being 4 years ago, just when Tom Holland joined the MCU for the first time.
He would have been about 5 years.
He was 19 at the time.
Minute.
Now he's 23. So yeah, that's when he was attached, who is still attached to this day. But unsurprisingly, the new direction and going for a younger Drake meant that Joe Carnahan's script was thrown out. And then in 2018, some Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. writers were brought on, and then Levy left the project. And then in 2018, Alan Ungar released his fan movie with Nathan Fillion, and that sort of took over the internet and sent everyone wild.
Yes, and even then, Sony refused to listen because they've not got Nathan Fillion on. Well, they're still apparently doing young Drake. Tom Holland's going to be young Drake from Uncharted 3, and I don't know if it's this point in the movie thing where Mark Wahlberg rears his head again.
Close. Almost immediately after this, Dan Trachtenberg in 2019 was announced to direct. This actually got me really excited. We did some videos. I don't think you wanted to do them. I think I was just like, Scott, I love Dan Trachtenberg. Get in the studio. I want to talk about the Uncharted movies.
I've never heard of this.
He did the 10 Cloverfield Lane movie.
That's why.
And also directed the playtest episode of Black Mirror. Season 3, where they're in the VR space.
Good.
Really good.
I don't think I would have said no. That was done out at home.
No, I think you were excited, but you did do it with me, if I recall.
I don't remember.
It's on the internet somewhere.
Cool.
Really good. So yeah, I've got down here, really good idea, but he left, because of course he did. And then almost immediately after, Travis Knight joined, who directed Bumblebee, which was also an inspired choice. This is at least Sony looking at interesting directors.
Bumblebee's surprisingly good.
Exactly, yeah. And this is when Mark Wahlberg also rejoined the project, now as Sully. And things were looking well. We had a 2021 release date locked in, but then tragically, Travis Knight had to leave because of scheduling conflicts with Spider-Man 3, thanks to the renewed deal between Sony and Marvel, which meant that Tom Holland was out of commission for a while, and Travis Knight had to leave. So that brings us to 2020.
I tell you what is the thing that stands out is that I love that this thing's been in production for so long that an actor once pegged to play the lead young role is now old enough to play the old mentor sage.
It's almost perfect, isn't it? Like, it's so poetic.
It would be if it wasn't Mark Wahlberg.
Horrible.
And I love Mark Wahlberg. But not as Sully.
Not as Sully.
No, I like him in The Departed.
He's not even. Is he even old enough to play Sully?
I wouldn't say so. But if they're doing the young Drake storyline, and Tom Holland's. I mean, the thing is, Tom Holland's not young enough to be young Drake anymore because the young Drake is like a teenager.
Well, this is the thing. Give it 5 years or something, and then Tom Holland's almost the same age as Drake from Drake.
I was thinking that, and then Mark Wahlberg can be super old Sully that looks like he's half dead in Uncharted 4.
That could work.
I just think that considering the response to the fan film that everyone blew up about, I mean, you'd go with Nathan Fillion, you do the Uncharted 4 storyline, you can totally do a meta-narrative that everyone thinks he's too old for it, and you just go with that. Everyone wants him to be Nathan Drake ever since the beginning.
Well, the problem is, Scott, right? Because we have some actually breaking news. This is why we did the video, is that literally yesterday, Tom Holland was saying that the movie is going to start shooting in about 4 weeks, which, as you might guess, is a problem because it currently has no director. Sony are looking for Ruben Fleischer, who directed the recent Venom film, which was admittedly a smash hit success for the studio to come on board, but that's not been officially signed. And if the project is filming in 2 weeks and it has no director, you have to assume it's going to get pushed back once again.
Who was talking to Tom Holland, and when he said that, they went, "Have you got a director?" And he, what?
I don't know if they actually mentioned that.
Filming in 4 weeks, what? It just is.
Who? Never heard of her. It just is.
It just is. I think obviously Tom Holland's been attached for a while. He has a lot of energy. I mean, I absolutely love Tom Holland, but he has a bit of a reputation for not getting everything right, especially when it comes to movies that he's in.
That's true.
So you never know. But if anyone was going to know the director that would be attached to his leading role, you would assume it would be him.
Yes.
So if the fact that he hasn't followed that up with a comment, I'm going to guess that it's still in Firefire territory.
The thing that makes me optimistic, even though all of the evidence, the 12 years of evidence suggests that I shouldn't be optimistic, is the fact that they still have 2 stars attached. It seems like Sony is really wanting to make this. They've got Mark Wahlberg, they've got Tom Holland, 2 big stars, you know, even if we don't necessarily like Mark Wahlberg as an actor.
No, I do. I just don't want him as Drake or Sully.
Okay.
He's all right.
But the
Marky Mark and all that.
I just feel like, it's got to happen soon. They've spent too much time. They've got 2 great stars there waiting to go. And if they don't capitalize on it, if Ruben Fleischer says no, just give up, Sony. I want to see this movie, but
do you though?
I've spent too much of my time thinking about it.
The thing is,
too much brain space to it.
The thing is, when The Last of Us, because initially there was going to be a Last of Us movie, and Neil Druckmann was going to come on board to do that as well. And over time, it just sort of fizzled out. And I remember someone tweeting Neil Druckmann to ask what was going on, and he said it was either creative differences, or he just said that it didn't come together, and that was it. It just sort of fell apart. And it always highlights to me that the more cinematic the game, the less you need a movie, because there's just all this is going to be is all the cutscenes stitched together without the stuff that elevates the game.
Well, we've talked about this on a podcast before, and this is actually why I quite like the idea of it, because yes, I do agree that the games are so cinematic, but this is why I'd rather see a young Drake story, because I don't need to see the story of the 4 games repeated in cinema form, because it's going to be the same thing, only lessened because it's not going to be as good. You don't get as much time to spend with the characters.
No Nolan North either.
So if no Nolan North, no Troy Baker, no any of the cast, so if they're going to have to push ahead and do it, make it entirely separate. We joked about Sully being Drake's dad, and that would have been terrible, but at least it would have been a completely separate thing from the games, because in my opinion, you don't need an adaptation of the games because they're already so good.
I tell you what, if you're not going to do Nathan Fillion's, the one that they did the fan film of with a bigger budget, do something completely different. Get the Zero Dark 30 guy back, make it so that Drake is Sully's son, make him a secret base in the train station, and make it like Amazing Spider-Man. Do something that's your own thing, because they have to make the film worthwhile, and the games are just better than films anyway, so why'd you even need it at this stage, really?
Oh, I thought I wanted something different, then you just explained it like that.
Yeah, they do it like that. That's what they do.
I want to lie down.
I tell you, I haven't gone back to it, but I bet the Super Mario Brothers movie is now regarded as like an avant-garde classic. If we went back to that, it's like, well, it's so different.
You mean it wasn't back at the time?
Sadly, it wasn't revered as that at the time.
I thought it was an art movie. We learned about that in university.
No, neither of us were on the planet back then, but it's but apparently it was a bit of a mess. Anyway, let us know what you think down in the comments below of the timeline of the Uncharted movies, and if it's even worth putting together going forward. For now, though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time.
Bye. You'd make a good Sully.
What does he do? He says, damn it, Josh.